Hello and welcome everyone. It is Tuesday, August 2nd. We're already here till August. And my name's Chris Latham, and I am the course director for game music composition. I'll be hanging out with you guys this month on our Tuesday and Thursday sessions. We have lots of different topics to discuss, and the first Tuesday session here is going to be a little bit different than the rest of our Tuesdays because it's brand new and we have lots of information to cover. There's a lot of introductory material and just talking about an overview of the month before we get into the assignments. So each of our Tuesday sessions are going to be a discussion of the new week's assignments. So hopefully you've taken the opportunity to go on FSO and download all of the materials for week one. So towards the second half of our session this afternoon, we will get into the new week one assignments, discuss the projects and the games that you'll be working on. And but before we do that, we will have kind of a discussion of the overview of the class and what to expect from the class, and what does the class and projects expect from you, and what kind of direction that we will be headed with all of our topics that we will discuss and the projects that we work on. So really the main focus of this class is to introduce you to the role of a music composer working on a game, to introduce you to this side of the industry. I understand that folks coming into the class have a wide variety of experience with games, and so we're really here to discuss the fact that your music is just as viable in a game as it is in on a music album or in a television show or in a film. As you progress through the degree program, kind of here in the later classes, we expose you to different parts of the industry, the music industry. Though the industry as a whole is typically a freelance kind of gig, as you pick up different types of projects, and to show you your music is not only applicable on an album in that media or in that format, but it could also be part of a library of music that's used for television commercials, or it could actually be used for television shows or film productions. But now we'll talk about what is kind of the same and different, and the unique approach of how your music can work in a game also. So we will talk about how the music is built and formatted, how you kind of approach a new game project and kind of dissect it and figure out all of the parts of where your music might go and what type of music you might create and how does it all work together. Because music for a game, there are lots of similarities to production of music for a game as there is for a film. And there's, of course, a lot of unique characteristics to it also. So we want to show that really the creation of the music is very, very similar between lots of different types of projects, whether it is for an album, whether it is for a film or for a game. It's still music production, it's still music recording, it's still composition and orchestration. The creation, composition, production, mixing, mastering, all of the different levels of the actual creation of the music is quite similar in all of those different forms. But what happens to the music after it has been created and how it is used in the game is quite different than it is for a film. So when you watch a movie, you sit down and whether you have it on a disc, a DVD, or a Blu-ray disc, or you stream it through some online streaming service, there for a 2-hour-long movie, there is a 2-hour-long audio file that's either stereo or 5.1 surround sound that plays from the beginning to the end of the movie with music, sound effects, and dialogue playing back the same way for everybody who watches that film. Now, some people watch it on little TV speakers, and some people watch it on huge home theater systems, but the original content is the same. And every single time you rewind and play that movie again, you will get the same experience. But for a game, games can easily last 2 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours, or a lot of modern games have 20 or 40 or 50 or could even go to hundreds of hours of content. And certainly if you get into multiplayer online games, those games get massive and huge open worlds that people can explore for a very, very long time. That doesn't mean that there is 40 hours of music on the game disc somewhere sitting in one long file as it is in a movie, playing from beginning to end. Because as soon as you hand the controller over to a player, somebody actually controlling the game, all bets are off, and you don't really know what they're going to do. And your music has to react and interact with what the player is doing, the actions that they are doing the game to actually play it. So there is not only the creation of music. So for a music album, you have the creation of music for music's sake. For a film, you have music that is parallel to an image. But with a game, you have that music, you have that image, but you also have the interactivity of a player with a controller in their hand. They see something on the screen, they react to it, hit a whole bunch of buttons on a controller or on a mouse and a keyboard, and then the game reacts to what the player does, and the player reacts to what the game does, and you have that interactivity back and forth. And so anybody who plays the game should have a different experience than everybody else that plays the game. And sometimes it's a little bit different, and sometimes it's vastly different. So it depends on the game and what the game's all about. So the music for a game doesn't exist in one long audio file that plays from beginning to end. It exists in lots of little pieces and parts that are arranged and rearranged in different orders to react to the action that's going on the screen. What is the player doing? What do they need to be hearing at any one point in time with music, sound effects, and dialogue? And the game, so the music exists in lots of little files on the game disc, and the game takes those files and puts them together in some sort of logical order so that it plays back in a seamless manner that the player probably doesn't even notice that music is changing and shifting in the background, reacting to what the player is doing. Sometimes it's right in your face and it's really obvious and it says, pay attention to me, but a lot of times it's in the background, subtly changing between different emotion or different tempos or pace, or generally reacting to what the player is doing, so that over an hour or 5 hours or 10 hours or days or weeks of time, it feels like a soundtrack that has been built custom to your game experience, or at least as close as we can get with current technology. So we will talk about how in the first half of the month, it is more towards the music itself, the creation, the project. In the first week, we'll talk about the role of a game composer working with a game team, who hires you, who signs the paychecks, who has creative control, because working with a game team is somewhat similar to working with a film team, where you as the musician, you as the composer or as the artist, do not have ultimate creative control. It's a team sport. It's a team effort for everybody working together to get it done. So we'll talk about how your music, your sound effects fit in with also with graphics, with animation, there's the programming and code and all of the tech side, how all of these things fit together to create the interactive game that somebody is playing. So the first week is about jobs and the different teams and how that all works together to create a game project. The second week is more of how your music is created and built to work in a game. Basically, starting from a blank slate. Somebody says, okay, we're going to hire you. You have great music. You have a great demo reel, a portfolio, and we want to hire you to work on our game project. What do we need? A lot of the times, especially when you're working with smaller teams overall, you are the audio person and you are the smartest person in the room when it comes to music and audio and sound. A lot of clients know what they want. They know it when they hear it, but they can't describe it to you. They don't speak the language of music, or it's not like being in a studio with a bunch of musicians and engineers where everybody speaks the same language. They're artists, they're programmers, they're designers, they're storytellers, and they want to tell a story, and that includes music and sound. So you have to interpret their creative ideas into music and sound effects and determine what is necessary. So starting from the blank slate, new game, blank DAW session, and you need to start creating music for this game. So you figure out how much music you need, where does it all go, how do you create music for the beginning, the middle, and the end of the game, what type of music do you need, is it going to be entirely in the box and digital? Is it going to have live musicians, or is it going to be completely orchestral or entirely live musicians? And basically building the soundtrack of how it will work together. And then more towards the end of the month, we will start getting into some of the technical sides of how the music actually works in the game. So a lot of folks that are interested in working in the game industry, they come from another part of the industry. They are musicians, they're composers, they work on, they're engineers, they work in studios, they work in production houses, they are in their own studios, and they know how to make music, they know how to record, they know how to make sound effects, do sound design, maybe do field recording. They know how to produce and create audio in some way, and they just want to take what they do and apply it to video games. Maybe they've done albums, maybe they've done motion pictures or film and television. Now they want to take a try with video games, and so they know how to create the audio, but they don't know how to actually get it into the game to make it work, so that when somebody hits a button on the controller, it plays the right sound or plays the right music file. So we will talk about some of the process and the workflow and the tools that are involved with actually getting your music working in the game. So that is the general overview of the topics. Our Thursday sessions are more towards a discussion of different parts of the industry, as I just outlined. Our Tuesday sessions are going to be a discussion of the new assignments for each week. But starting next Tuesday, you will have turned in your first round of assignments. So all of here we are in week one. All of your assignments for week one are due by the end of the week, by Sunday. So when we meet again on Tuesday of week two, you have the opportunity for a bit of peer review and feedback. You have the opportunity to, each week, you will complete your projects, your compositions, and then you can submit it for feedback and review, where we can look over it live in the session. If you can make the live go-to training sessions, then we can talk about it and ask questions and discuss your project. If you can't, if you want to check out the archive each week, I post up the archive of each class the next day on FSO as an announcement, so it should show up in your FSO inbox. And so we, even if you can't make the live session, you check out the archive. I will still do a video review and feedback and talk my way through the session. Beyond that, even if you don't submit, it gives everybody a chance to see what other people are doing on their projects. So definitely take the opportunity to do the feedback and peer review each week. You'll see that on FSO. And you also have revisions. So we will take some time each week to discuss the old week's session, or the previous week, I shouldn't say that, the previous week's session, the composition there, and then we will also talk about the new week's assignments. So that is generally the flow of our Tuesday and Thursday sessions and our kind of the month as a whole. Like I said, we'll dive into our week 1 assignments here in a bit. What other things do we need to talk about here? So let's get into the rest of this stuff. My name is Chris Latham. I am the course director of game music composition. I'll be hanging out with you throughout the month. And I've been with Full Sail for about 14 years now. I worked previously in the recording arts department on campus. My previous experience before Full Sail was more in the post-production, commercial television recording, studio, microphones, voiceover kind of recording, and production of audio, and moved into with Full Sail. So I started out in studios and have always been a passionate gamer, and eventually Full Sail got on the game audio train on campus. We've had a campus class for in the recording arts department for quite a while. Then when the music production degree started up, there was a game music composition class. So I jumped over here, built this class up, started with the online version, and now we have a campus version also. My experience is varied between studios and production, and now certainly involved in games. So I understand if you have you want to talk about any sort of different topics, there's my contact information. iChat and email are probably the best ways of getting in contact with me. I'm away from my phone, my desk phone, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, teaching the class. So if you call my phone and you reach my voicemail, send me an email, send me an iChat, and we can discuss whatever you need or set up a time to meet. Beyond Full Sail of a game audio contracting company called Engine Audio, and so been working on a couple of different projects over the years in games. My previous kind of experience was trying to figure out how I could play more games and do audio at the same time. So I figured out I try to take games apart and start putting my own sounds in there and start making my own demos overall. And so we here in Orlando, we have Tiburon, which is a part of EA Sports. So they do a lot of Madden and NCAA. Well, they did NCAA. They do NBA Live. They do some Need for Speed and some FIFA. So we've worked with them over the years. Currently working on Madden 17 and NBA Live. And we also have a game called Depth, which is an underwater Sharks and Divers multiplayer game on Steam. If you're ever familiar with Steam, it is a great online game store where you can get some cool free Mac games, actually. Different projects over the years getting involved with, but the best way of actually working on games is to get teamed up on a project and get involved overall. So there's a couple of disclaimers that I want to throw out there here towards the beginning. Actually, I should have thrown them in there a little bit earlier, but my first disclaimer is you don't actually have to be any good at video games to be successful in this class. I know that people coming through this class have a wide variety of experience with video games. Some people eat and breathe and live video games, are up on the industry and know games and are playing games and playing the newest and latest stuff and are into the industry. And that's me right there. I can nerd out with you all day about games and the industry and audio production and all that. And I also know that there are folks coming through this class that haven't touched a video game in quite a while, or since they were throwing quarters into the Pac-Man machine, or playing Minesweeper or chess or whatever on their computers. And that's perfectly fine also. Your skills at actually playing a video game are not important in this class, or to being successful in this class. The skills that are required are your skills that you've been learning through all of the classes as you progress through the degree program. Your skills of composition and production and understanding of music theory and understanding your DAW and your all of your production tools, synths, samplers, automation, bouncing, formatting, all of the tools, editing and mixing and mastering, and all of the things that you've been gathering over the course of all of your classes so far, and being able to take a client's creative vision for their game and render it into music. So a lot of what we will be talking about. So your skills at actually playing a video game is not important, but creating the soundtrack to a video game and the sound effects for them, all of the audio production, that is what's required. So that's the first disclaimer. The second one is a common question that happens pretty early on is, do I have to know programming or do I have to know code to be successful in the industry? To be able to be a music composer for games, do I have to be able to code, to script, to be able to program? And that is a pretty big no overall. Most of the skills that are required by the music composer are the composition. More than likely, your job ends at the delivery of the final approved audio and music. So you'll send the music back and forth, whether you email it or you upload it to Dropbox or you put it up to an FTP or however you would with a client transfer audio back and forth. And you would eventually, through a series of revisions, eventually get to a final approved version. And over time, you would deliver more and more of these approved files, but it's somebody else's job to actually get them to play back in the game. Now, over time, you will probably realize that if somebody else is putting your music and making it work in the game, there's an opportunity for it not to play back as you expected. And it's kind of like having somebody else mix your album or mix your music. While nobody probably knows better the intention of your music than you when you created it and you composed it. Now, sometimes you go over to somebody else, like a expert mix engineer, and they make it better. And that happens a whole lot in games also. You are the music composer, and you hand it over to the game team, and with their technical skills, they make it sound even better because it interacts with the game. But sometimes there's a lot of reasons why musicians learn all of the technology that's involved in the production of music. So same thing with creating a music album and working in games, right? So a lot of people come through the degree program in one of two different paths, in a very, very generic sense. But a lot of folks either have experience in music, they have some sort of experience in performance or understanding of music theory and playing their instrument. They have their instrument, understood all of that and brought that to the degree program, but they want to understand more of the technology, the production. How do I make the music that I create? How do I make that sound How do I record that? How do I distribute that out to fans or to the public? And then there are also those coming in another path that understand the technology. They have been working in the DAW, the software. They've been working with synths and samplers and creating music with all of the tools and the technology without maybe a fundamental understanding of theory and the creation and the performance of a specific instrument. And both of those are completely legit paths to learning whatever they need through the degree program. And so just in the same way that music and the recording of a music album, there is a mixture of creativity and technology. There's the same thing with games. There is a mixture of creativity and technology. Your job as the music composer is mostly in the creative department or creative side of things. And there are programmers and game developers that are there to take your music and actually make them work in the game. So your understanding of code and programming. Now, if you have those skills from some other location or way or whatever, now any skill set that you have makes you more valuable overall. But it's your skills as a music composer are paramount, and that's really what you were hired for. First and foremost is your skills at music. So those are my two disclaimers. Number one, you don't have to be any good at playing video games to be successful in this class. And number two, you don't need to know how to code and program to be successful in this class or in the industry as a whole. Typically, over time, with experience, a music composer starts learning the tools, learning the technology, so that they have more control over the process. But that is certainly not a required entry point to the industry as a whole. Some of the goals of this class, number one is, of course, writing music. That's why we're here. That's why you're here in the degree program. You're working on your skills at the creation and composition of music. It's just specifically tailored to a game project. And so over your different classes that you have gone through, and then you have another couple to go before the end, you should be gathering up all of the material, building your portfolio, building your demo reel, and gathering as much material together as you can to be able to present it to a client, to present it to an employer, to show off your skills. So we have each week you will be creating music for a particular game, music that is specific to the type of game and the soundtrack that's required overall. So number one, we're here to write music. Number two is play video games. I have a very important concept in this class, which is game research. And game research means you need to be playing video games. You need to be paying attention to video games, and of course, paying attention to the music and the audio. So if anybody asks you why you are playing more video games this month, you are doing game research. You are paying attention to the game. You're paying attention to the music, the dialogue, the sound effects, the mix, and how it all works together. If you don't have any video games, then we provide you with video games to play. Each week there is a new game, and that game requires custom music soundtrack and eventually sound effects. So by the end of the month, you will have 3 separate video games with a custom music soundtrack and sound effects that you have created with video capture of the music working in the game and an actual working Mac application that you can distribute. You can put it on your website. You can put it on Dropbox and send it around, whatever you need to do, but it will have your music set up for adding to a demo reel or portfolio. So not only is it for playing video games, but for the fun of playing video games, but really it is there to pay attention to the music, to pay attention to the sound effects. How does the music interact with the game? How does it switch and change? Do you notice that it changes? Are you supposed to notice? How does it react to the emotional content of the game, to the pacing of the game, to the interactivity of the game? We'll talk about different types of games and what their sort of expectations for music might be. So even if you are not familiar with games, we will immerse you in games and the overall industry, and just kind of introduce you to this whole approach and this side of things. And so amongst all of that music writing and video game playing, there is a lot to learn. There's a lot of knowledge involved with all of this. There is a technology hurdle that is often involved in understanding how the music works together, introducing you to these types of games, these types of projects. Like I said earlier, your music doesn't exist in one audio file. Most of the music that you've ever written or you are accustomed to listening to is a linear piece of music. It is an audio file. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There are verses and choruses and solos and intros and endings, and there's a structure to your music. Every time you rewind back and play back through, that's what you hear. But with a video game, your music is going to be divided up into multiple audio files that are played in different order and in different ways to react to whatever is happening in the game. So understanding how your music is actually working, how it actually functions is certainly important. All right, what else do we have? Let's get into the actual assignments and start talking about your first week one assignments overall. Our first thing here is don't fail. That's certainly easily said and easily done as we talk about the assignments as a whole and a good solid approach to how you should be working on this. But the overall direction is that you should be downloading all of the assignments from FSO as soon as you can. And the beginning of the week, they are released Sunday night and get access to them on Monday morning. And download everything, open up the assignments, check out the PDFs, the documentation for the assignments, open up and play the video games. Certainly, hopefully, before the Tuesday session, so we have a good idea of what we're talking about as we are discussing the assignments. So getting early access to everything is key, because you can also hopefully, if you run into any sort of technical issues, you can contact me and we can work through whatever issue it is. There are, it is software, it is a video game. There is a possibility between the computer and which operating system and the software that's on your computer as to whether or not the game's successfully run. I have a very good record overall of getting all of the technology to work in everybody's computer, and that used to be more of a problem overall, but as everybody's computers have gotten better over the years, the games function quite a bit better overall. But if there is any sort of issues, you should run into them as early as you can. Just open up the game, check it out, and contact me if you have any issues, because through the weekend I'm not going to be very contactable, very much in communication. So run into any of the issues through the week. We can figure it out so that you're not running into any big troubles on Sunday night. The other aspect here is the revisions. Each week you have the opportunity to revise any of the previous week's assignments. So next week you will have a week one revision assignment that opens up. So here in week one, you work through all of your assignments, you deliver them on Sunday. Then next week, through the beginning of the week, I will grade all of the assignments and grade with feedback and comments and critique and deliver it back to you. You can update and change any of the assignments, follow any of the feedback criteria, and make any updates and deliver it back by the end of the next week. And not only will it update your grade and change your overall grade for the positive, but you really get a better project overall for the demos to show off. So that's really the focus overall. So getting early access to the assignments and doing the revisions are the best way of being successful in the class overall. Here are the assignments. Well, here are the breakdown of the assignments, at least the grade percentages. Each week you have a new game composition. That's the biggest assignment. All of the other assignments are kind of based off of that in some way. It is a new game, and that, as I said, needs a custom soundtrack built for it. So you will create the music in a specific way and deliver that along with a video capture of your music actually working in the game. And that's a separate assignment. We'll talk about that. So that is the 10% of the overall grade, and it's larger of the assignments, and the other assignments are kind of based off of it in some way. Your technical assignment is taking some aspect of your game composition and doing something technical with it. So here in the first week, you will be doing a game capture using QuickTime and a program called Loopback in order to capture your music working in the game. We'll talk about it, but each week you have the opportunity of putting your music into the game so that it works, and you can play it back and hear how it functions and hear how it plays back. So you'll do a video capture, you will upload it to YouTube, and then share it so that we can check it out and use it for peer review. The production technique this week is a looping assignment. The looping assignment has you going through a couple of different looping techniques. Looping music is very important for a video game because a music loop allows you to stay in one place musically before you move on to the next part of the game, before you move on to the next part of the soundtrack. So while the player is solving the puzzle, or while they are fighting the enemy, or while they are trying to wander through the maze endlessly trying to find their way out, there is a piece of music that goes around and around. It follows them as long as they need to before they move on. So looping music is extremely important, and each one of our projects, each one of our game compositions, requires looping music. Each week you have a 20-question quiz. That quiz is based off of the Thursday sessions, the Thursday afternoon slides and discussion and topics there. So make sure you download the PDF associated with it, the slides for each week. You probably should wait to our Thursday session or the archive to work through that quiz, or you can go take a pass through it and then ask me any questions and finish it out through the end of the week. This first week there is a discussion post that is pretty open-ended. What's your experience with games? What's your favorite game? What's your favorite musical experience with games? Just so I get an idea of people's overall involvement with games and understanding, so I can tailor the class. I don't make it too technical, or I can understand that if I throw out a couple of topics or terminology, that you understand what I'm talking about, and just tailor it a little bit better overall. All right, so let's talk about the actual games that you'll be working on this month, and start out with our first game this week called 2D Platformer. Before we actually get into this, let me pause real quick and take a quick break. Let me know if you have any questions. Actually, in the chat, Darren was playing the game earlier. Excellent. So that was one of my questions, was have you checked out and played the game and seen what it's all about? And of course, that's what we will be discussing here as we go along. So hold on just a moment. I'll be back in a sec. let me know if you have any questions. All right. Should be good to go here. Let's see. Get the video up here. Turn this down for just a sec. All right, we actually have a question here in the chat. On the production assignment, can we loop at any point, or is there a certain spot that should be used? You should use the downbeat. You should use most of the music is pretty easily divided into 4 bars or 8 bars or whatever it is. So just make sure you cut the loops on the downbeats so that it is the strongest point. The main reason for loops is that you are moving from one loop to the next, and as you move from one loop to the next, you want it to be as seamless as possible. And so the downbeat or a real hard transition is typically a pretty good place to do that. So we should be getting into, I don't know if we're going to get into the production technique in this session. We'll probably have to pick it up on Thursday, but I definitely will go through it and discuss how it's going to work. All right, so here is here's 2D platformer. As you can see, it's kind of a ridiculous game overall. You are a being with a monocle and a top hat, and there's an alien invasion going on. I think this is London. There's an alien ship here on London Bridge. I think London Bridge has fallen down. There's Big Ben over here that's broken, and the London Eye that's been broken. For some reason, the aliens have attacked, and you were the only person to end off the alien invasion. You are a being with a bazooka, mustache, and monocle, and you are going to save the day. So it is pretty ridiculous overall, and hopefully that will be reflected a bit in the music. The music overall is a bit open. I leave this first project open in style and instrumentation, and the overall approach. There are some specifics that we'll get into, and we'll definitely talk about how the music is actually structured and how it works. Let me take a step back here and talk about the game itself. Right at the beginning of the video, the logo is thrown up that says powered by Unity. This game is built in the Unity game engine. It is built by Unity Technologies, is the company that created the game. And maybe you are familiar with the Unity game engine. It is, if you play a lot of mobile games, iOS games, and Android games, you might have played a Unity game. If you pay attention, maybe you see the logo thrown up there every once in a while on one of the games that you play. And it's a game engine in a extremely loose comparison could be thought of like a DAW, only in that Your DAW is the main tool that you use to make all of your music and to record your album. Your game engine is the tool that you use to make a game. And there are a lot of different game engines out there. We will be talking about the Unity game engine and the Unreal game engine. Those are pretty common game engines out there. But it's two very popular tools that are used to make a game. And so the Unity game engine, they wanted to show off the technology of how to make a simple game here. And so they created this fun game called 2D Platformer. And it is a 2D platforming game. That means it's 2D, meaning there's only left and right. You don't go into the image in 3D in any sort of way. And it's a platformer game, which is all about jumping and running and shooting or punching, or platformer games like Super Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong are classic platformer games where it's really about jumping from one platform to the next and getting farther and farther into the level. Here, there really isn't much of a game. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun game to play. But it's only one game level. There's really no ending to the game, but it's very similar to the type of game that you would get in progress while the game is being made. So it's not a full game, but hey, here's a level, here's the characters, here's what the game is actually going to play like. Check it out, make some music for it, and as we build more of the game, you'll build more of the soundtrack. This game project is very structured a whole lot like the types of projects that you would get, or the types of games that you would get while it's being built. So let's talk about the music now and how it's going to work. And right now it's silent and we're just watching it, but I'll load up examples here after a bit so that we have something to listen to. But the music itself is going to be built in a series of different files. And those files are randomly chosen by the game in any order to play back to create more of a random evolving soundtrack. So along with this video, you get the documentation for this assignment, which looks something like, where'd it go? This. You get the PDF, which is the design document, which talks about this game and the project overall, and the music that you will be creating. Come on here. Expand. No? About it? There you go. Okay. So, in this PDF, there's a project overview, which is a lot of description, a lot of what I'm talking about now, kind of summarizes how the music is going to work and how it's set up to work in the game. A little bit about the game itself, 2D platformer built by Unity Games. You can check out their website at unity3d.com. 2D platformer games have a long pedigree in the game industry. Classics like Super Mario Brothers, Donkey Kong, and Metroid were 2D platformer games. Now you have modern varieties like Limbo, Braid, and Jetpack Joyride. So just kind of the overall style to get a feel of what the game is about. Musical style, I really leave it open to you, but there's a couple of different ways you can go. There is a alien invasion aspect to the game, so maybe you could get a little bit of you could go with a theremin or some sort of synth that feels a little bit spooky or alien invasion, but it still has to be the music overall is probably a bit wacky and silly and fun. The game itself is supposed to be family friendly in all ages, so it needs to be lighthearted and up-tempo and fun and bouncy and memorable. It shouldn't be too dark or depressing or subtle or in the background. So it should really be memorable in how it moves and progresses. So there could be that alien invasion aspect to it, or you also have the fact that it's set in London, and so you could have I've written up here Monty Python meets Mars Attacks, or Benny Hill versus the Body Snatchers. Different ideas, different directions that you might go, and of course we'll listen to some examples here. How to play, it's really using the arrow keys on your keyboard. You can hit spacebar to jump. Left click is to fire the bazooka. You can also pick up and drop bombs against the alien invaders. Hopefully should be not too difficult to have fun with, and hopefully you'll be able to play the game, check it out. If all else fails, we do have the video, and you can just watch that to really get a sense of the music and how it's supposed to work. Excuse me. The instrumentation you definitely need. Each piece of music that you create is going to need drums, bass, harmony, and melody. The melody is going to be a strong melodic line, will be very important. But this is really where I want to get to, the asset list here. The asset list details all of the files that you will create for this composition. And the final result of this project, when you turn in this project, the main thing that you will be turning in is 9 wave files. And those wave files are all going to be 16-bit stereo wave files. And they are going to be set up in a particular way to work and play back correctly in the game. So 9 files. We actually have 3 different categories here. We have intros. So we have intro 1, 2, and 3, or music underscore intro underscore 01 underscore 02 underscore 03. With 3 intros, 3 main loops, music underscore main loop underscore 01, 01, 2, and 3. And then we have 3 endings, music underscore ending underscore 01 dot wave 1, 2, and 3. So 9 files, but they're really 3 different categories with 3 files in them. Intro, main loop, and endings. This is a very, very common way that music works in a game. And it's one common approach that we will use this month for our game itself. So let's talk about how the music works. And then soon here, we'll actually listen to some examples also and how it functions. So when the game starts, all right, here Mr. Bean drops down onto the platform and the game starts. When the game starts, you have 3 intro files. You have created 9 files. Where did those go? Come back here. You have created 9 files. You have 3 intro files. Those 3 intro files are 2 bars long. Everything is 16-bit 44:1 stereo files. And they do not loop. They're intros. They play through one time, and then they go off to something else. So, 3 intro files. So the game says, all right, the game has started. Now I'm going to randomly choose one of these 3 files. So it chooses intro 2 to play. It plays through the 2 bars of the audio file. The game doesn't know anything about your music. It doesn't know the tempo of your music. It doesn't know the content of the audio file. It doesn't know how long the audio file is. All it knows is when it starts and when it ends. So the game starts and it chooses intro 2. And it plays through intro 2, and 2 bars later, it's reached the end of that file. Once it reaches the end of the file, it says, okay, the intro is done. Now I'm going to change to one of these 3 main loops. Those main loop files are 8 bars long. The most of the music while the game is being played is one of these 3 8-bar loops, 8-bar main loops. And they randomly switch and change in any sort of order to create the music that you hear. They are also 16-bit 44:1, but they are set up to loop because the music is completely random. It can play main loop 1, and then it can play main loop 1 over again. And then it could jump to 3, and then it could jump to 1, and then it could jump to 2, and then back to 3. It could just jump in any sort of order, and that creates most of the music that you hear. So as the game is being played, you hear all of the 3 main loop files for as long as the game goes on. And there isn't an ending to the game. There is no stop or anything. It just keeps going on and on. Your score can... I haven't really ever ended it. I've just always quit it out of the game eventually. But I'm sure the score just goes up and up and up. And eventually the game is going to be over. So there's a couple of different ways. You might notice, let's see, right here. Oops, pause. Mr. Bean here has a health meter over his head that shows you how much health is left. And if he runs out of health, well, there's these power-ups here, health power-ups that you can pick up. But eventually, right about there, that last alien takes the last bit of his health away, and the game is over. Now, at that point, the game immediately cuts off the main loop and switches to the ending, one of these three endings. So the game knows as soon as the game is over, you've lost the life, it switches to one of the ending files and plays out from there, and then it starts all the way over to the intros again. The game starts over. Jump back here. He falls in, game's over, or that round is over, and it starts over again. He pops back up, and the music starts with the intro again, and then switches through the main loops, and randomizes through all of those 9 files over and over again to make sure that they play back correctly. So let's actually listen to some audio. I know that's a whole bunch of talking and explaining it. Let's actually listen to something. Let me load up a session here. Hold on a sec. Let's see, week 1, 2D platformer. Demo, here we go. Don't close. Do the saved, yes. All right, here we go. All right, so here in the chat, Darren, all of this sounds familiar. There was a guy from Sony who said the same thing with how music loops and is set up in the game. Yes, you might be referring to Jonathan Mayer, who has come to speak to our students. He's a graduate of Full Sail and is now the music manager out at Sony. Works on most of the PlayStation games out there. Recently worked on Uncharted 4. He's probably working on the new God of War that they just announced. And what other? Oh, Last of Us and yeah, the whole Uncharted series. So lots of very, very cool games, and is involved in a lot of the big orchestral recording sessions and working with the different artists and composers and musicians. But yeah, that's how the music is built, is a series of sometimes you know exactly how long the player has to do something, right? They have 30 seconds to get across this level or this platform to reach the other side, to reach safety. Or they've got 2 minutes to disarm the bomb, or they've got 5 minutes to figure out the maze or the puzzle or whatever it is. So if they have a very specific amount of time, then you can write a 2-minute long or a 5-minute long piece of music that fits perfectly with it. But if there is a part of the game where you don't know how long it's going to take, how long is it going to take them to defeat the enemy, or to find the secret door, or to solve the key puzzle, or something to that effect, then a loop works a whole lot better, because a loop can go around and around. Maybe it goes around 1 time, 5 times, infinitely, however long it needs to, before you then progress on to the next thing. And it's a series of that. Sometimes it's, this is exactly 30 seconds long, or other times you have no clue how long it's going to be, so we're going to make this loop, or we're going to make a longer cue so they kind of get lost in it. And so it's a very common way of how music can be built for a game. All right, so a couple of musical examples here. We have 4 different submissions. These are previous student submissions and some things to listen for and pay attention to. Whoops. So let me just organize it here real quick. All right. So these over here, well, let me do this too. Let me just get rid of all of those and just have one of these for now. Actually, make sure I muted all of those. Mute, yes. Okay, so here's the 9 files. These are the 3 main loop files. These are each 8 bars long, and they should be set up to loop. These are the 3 intro files, and they are 2 bars long, and they're meant to intro or build energy or build anticipation heading into the main loops. And these are 3 ending files that are meant to end or resolve the music to an ending, to a finale. So let's take a listen to these. And we'll listen to a couple of different ones. Hopefully it gives us a good idea of what's going on here. All right, we'll start over here with, let's make sure we can hear something. Let's start there. Okay. These are 3 8-bar loops. Make sure, can you guys hear that? I can hear this. You can hear the music. You can hear me, hopefully. All of that. Yeah, looks like it's working. Okay, so the music here, let's just take a listen to it for a little bit. 3 8-bar loops as we transition from one to the next. Now as it reaches the end, it can return back to the front. So each one of these 8 bars, each 8-bar loop needs to feel like it comes from the same song. It's more like a part A, B, and C, 3 different variations on a similar idea. You should have drums, bass, harmony, and melody in each one of the cues. The melody should change in a strong way from one cue to the next. You could have a little bit of change in the drums and bass. Bass line might move a little bit differently between the different cues. The chord progression might move between different pattern of the progression from one cue to the next. And some of the challenge here is it all needs to feel like it comes from the same song. So all 3 of these should have the same tempo, be in the same key, feel like they are 3 different verses or of a song or 3 different variations of a similar composition. So same tempo, same key, same instrumentation, but the difference would be different melodies, different changes to the progression, to the bass line, but the drum patterns. But the instrumentation should maintain between each cue. 3 main loops, those will randomly move around or be randomly chosen as the game progresses. So let me show you kind of what happens here. 3 intros, 3 main loops, and 3 endings. Let's take a listen to these 3 intros here. So there should be a build. There should be a rise of energy. It probably needs to hang on a 4 or 5 so that it can resolve back to the downbeat of the 1. So it should rise right to a peak so that it can resolve to one of these 3 main loops. So when the game starts, it randomly chooses one of these 3 intro cues. So I'm just going to pull one of these over here. And then once it finishes the intro, it randomly chooses a main loop cue. and it plays them right back to back. And then it randomly chooses another main loop cue. And then it randomly chooses another one. It can choose the same one over again. And then it can go and choose another one. Get these all lined up here. So, and then let's do this. Here's the intro into one of the main loops. So the challenge here is all three of these intros have to work with all three of these main loops, and then it eventually has to work with all three of these ending cues. Whenever you reach the end of one of these files, the game has the opportunity to jump to any of the other ones or back to the same one. So there's basically like a three-pronged fork in the road whenever you reach the end of an 8-bar cue. And it can jump back to the beginning, it can jump to number 2 or to number 3. And then eventually, when the player loses all of their health points, they will hear one of the ending cues. And actually it plays just somewhere randomly. All right, and so by maintaining a similar tempo, by maintaining a similar key, you can have these different cues fit like puzzle pieces. Build it up so that they're each 8-bar loops. You have the 2-bar intros, the 2-bar endings to make sure everything resolves. So the endings need to actually end here. Let's bring up another example here. This one is a bit more of a synth approach. Right. Not that one. Number 2. All right, so 3 main loops, 3 intros, 3 endings. Let's listen to these. All right, so synth drums, we got a progression, list change. There's a change in the melody, change in the progression, bass line. You can identify that where the change happens and that you're in a different part of the music. Kind of goes to a halftime feel here. So halftime and double time is a good way to maintain the same tempo, but build up the pacing of the cue overall. 3 intros. Let's jump over here. All right, so this I wouldn't really call much of an intro. It feels more like a 2-bar loop, like it doesn't rise or it doesn't have much of a build to it. This one is more... This has a little bit of drum roll in the beginning and allows for a little bit better, but you should have all of the instrumentation help that intro and help the ending. Here's 3 ending cues. These... Oops, let's do that again. So they all resolve nicely. They end, they hit a last note and sustain out to silence. They fade to silence. They do reach an end before getting cut off by the file. So strong endings, strong intros, and then main loops that can rearrange. And it's always a good thing to probably start out on the downbeat with a tonic, and then work through your progression. And then maybe hang or suspend on the 4 or the 5 before it drops back to the downbeat, back on that tonic at the beginning. And if all 3 of these main loops start on that tonic, it can make a bit more sense when they're being arranged in a different order. All right, that is a 2D platformer. Hopefully that gives you a solid overview of how the game is set up and how it's supposed to work. Let's talk a little bit, just introduce the other games that you'll be working on throughout the month. Your game for week 2 is going to be, it's called Angry Bots. It is a futuristic third-person shooter, which means it's third-person, so you are first-person shooters. You are basically in the eyes and the arms of the character. Third-person has like this camera that looks down a little bit, or at least in this particular game, and you are a mercenary trying to invade a robot factory, and the robots are not pleased that you are there. So they try to battle you and fend you off. So there are different types of robots, and each one of those robots is going to have a different musical theme. Our focus of this game is not intros, loops, and endings like it is in the first week. Each week, with a new game, we have a new approach to the music. So this game is focused on what is known as ambient and action. Switching between a lower intensity ambient music to a higher intensity action music. And I don't mean ambient like the genre of ambient music. I mean less action than your action music. Sometimes it's known as battle and exploration, where a lot of times in a game you're just exploring around and trying to find out where you're trying to go or what you're trying to do next. And then all of a sudden the enemies pop out and you are in battle at that point, or you're hearing the action music. So we'll talk about how the game can transition and go back and forth at any time between these lower and higher intensity levels of music. I guess the other thing to point out with Angry Bots is that it is a much more modern music production, meaning that it's probably going to be darker and grittier, heavier on the synths and the drum machines, and electronic or metal or heavy orchestral, or just much more of a modern production style, because in week 3 we have a game called Palace of Rinthalion, which is mimicking an open world adventure game like a Skyrim game or an Elder Scrolls game or a Dragon's Age or a World of Warcraft or a Witcher or League of Legends, or I don't know, there's tons of them out there. So this has your music being able to be introduced, basically turned on and off, or put into the soundtrack and taken away at any point in the game. Your character there is a palace, which is an environment where the game will take place. There are 4 doorways in this palace, and those 4 different doorways represent 4 different parts of the game or 4 different parts of the adventure. And they each need their own musical theme. The player can exit any one of these doors and turn on and off that music at any time. So the music has 4 different parts to it that can be turned on and off or introduced and taken away at any moment in the game. And the player can listen to 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of them playing at the same time. So this is known as a vertical music system. We'll talk much more about this as we go through the month. But this game is much more orchestral. The instrumentation is entirely acoustic orchestral instruments made up for this kind of fantasy adventure soundtrack. So each week, each game requires different types of music and different types of wave files, or overall approach to how the music is going to work. I will probably start out on Thursday with an introduction from our looping techniques in the production assignment, or the production technique assignment. But download it, take a look at it. Is 3 different techniques of how you can edit and bounce your music files so that they seamlessly loop in the game. Music loops, the intention is to make sure that your player does no clue that they are in a loop and that they are starting over again and hearing that loop go around and around. So we'll talk about how to make that happen. And your game capture, I believe at some point in your career at Full Sail, you have used QuickTime to do a video capture, either of your screen or your video camera. And we are going to use QuickTime to capture footage from the game and also the audio from the game with your custom music in it. Actually, let me do this. A good point to bring up here. Get this out of the way. You get when you download the assignment, you get the game itself. And let me do this. Here is 2D Platformer. Here's the application. It is a Mac application. You double click on it and it brings up this window, and you can change the screen resolution. You can make the window bigger and smaller. If you turn on and off windowed makes a window. If you uncheck this, it will play full screen, which is can be kind of cool sometimes. The graphics quality, this isn't a amazing graphic masterpiece, so this probably won't have that much of effect because it's really not pushing the computer all that hard. Then you just hit play and you start playing the game. But if you want, well, you will complete your music and place your music actually into the application so that the next time you play the game, you will hear all of the music that is required. So in order to put the music in the game, you are going to right-click on the application and choose Show Package Contents. This shows you all of the files and folders contained in the game, and it gives you a nice folder here called Contents. You go into Contents, then you go into Data. Inside of Data, there is Streaming Assets. And then there are 2 folders that you will probably recognize very quickly: Music and Sound Effects. The Sound Effects folder is filled with all of the original sound effects from the game. In week 2, you will go back and you will complete all of the sound effects from the game, and you will finish or replace all of these WAV files. Notice that the music folder is empty. That is your job. You will be creating music and putting it into this folder. When you are done with everything, hold on just a sec. When you are done with everything, you will have these 9 files. 3 endings, 3 echoes, and 3 main loops. Just the same way as it is laid out somewhere around, where did that go? Oh, trusty PDF files. Here we go. Just as it is laid out here in the asset list, these 9 files, you will eventually create those 9 files and you can put them into the game. I do not expect that you will remember, just because I showed you here, that you go into Data and that you go into Streaming Assets and find this folder. But all of that is detailed in here in the PDF. Putting your music in the game. Go to Contents, Data, Streaming Assets, and Music, and place your 9 files in that folder. And then the next time you go run the game, it will play your music. As long as it's formatted correctly, 2-bar intros and endings, 8-bar main loop files. They're all named properly. They're all formatted properly. The game is actually quite stupid in that it does amazing complex stuff, but it only knows exactly what you tell it. So it doesn't know that you misspelled it. It doesn't know that it's meant to have an underscore instead of a space. Doesn't know that you meant to capitalize it or put a 0 before the 1 or whatever. Don't change the file names or the formatting at all, or else the game won't work. Or at least the audio won't work. Sometimes it can make the game act weird too. So if it's not working, just double check the format, double check the files, listen to your WAV files, put them back into your Logic session, right? Just like we did here. We took these 9 files and listened to them inside of... Come on, don't import. We listened to them inside of Logic. So do that when you are done with your files, when you bounce out everything, before you send them off to the client, before you deliver them on FSO, check them, bring them into Logic, make sure they play back, make sure what you bounced is exactly what you thought you bounced. And then put them into the game and check it out. Then you'll do a video capture. Again, I'll be explaining how you do a video capture a little bit later in the week. But that is an overview of the assignments for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. That should be enough from me for this afternoon. Actually, I guess I could throw this up here. This is the grade sheet for... Where did that go? The grade sheet for your composition. Hello. There you go. So read through this. We have implementation, mix, formatting, delivery, screenshots. These are the technical aspects. Do you have enough instruments? Is the mix loud enough, or is it not overloading and distorting? Is it not panned all sorts of weird, or too much reverb, or no reverb at all, or some odd thing with the mix? Is everything formatted correctly according to the asset list? Did you name and deliver everything correctly along with the screenshot? Then we have the compositional aspects, which is the consistency. As the music moves from intro 1, 2, and 3 into main loop 1, 2, and 3 and into ending 1, 2, and 3, make sure it all feels like one consistent song, that the player can't tell that it's really moving all that much. The melody and harmony. Do you have strong melody, harmony, and rhythm? Development between each one of the cues as the music moves along. So, of course, when we do peer review and we grade it and give the feedback next week, we'll talk about that some more. So, all right, let's wrap it up there. If you have any questions, I'll stick around for a bit. But other than that, again, the archives are posted up. You'll see all this stuff posted up on FSO. Of course, you guys are here in the live session, but for those that find this on online FSO, all of our archives are posted on the FSO inbox as an announcement the day after, so you'll see them show up on Wednesday and Friday. And other than that, you have a good afternoon, and I will see you again on Thursday. All right, thank you very much.